verse 1 points out that two things are true of real runners who finish and don't get disqualified at the end and wind up in hell. Number one, they're not stupid. And number two, they don't cheat. Do you see that? Lay aside every weight. Like, don't wear an overcoat if you're doing a marathon. Don't carry dumbbells in your pants. That's stupid. And number two, don't cheat. No performance-enhancing drugs in your vein. We don't cheat, and we're not stupid. I think that's the point of wait and sin, wait and sin. So when I was raising 5 kids, trying to anyway, I remember that they would want to do something I disapproved of. And as we began to talk, they'd say things like, "Daddy, what's wrong with it?" And my response generally to that statement, based on this text and others, wait and sin, was, look, can we just not only ask the question, what's wrong with it, but will it make you a great runner? Will it help you with all your energy, all your mind, and all your heart, and all your love to be so devoted to Jesus that nothing will stop you from maximally running, maximally quick, finish the race? You will be a great runner. The question is not what's wrong with it. The question is, will it help you run? So I don't think the issue is merely, okay, what's the lowest standard we can possibly find? What's cheating? What's cheating? We won't cheat. We'll carry dumbbells. We'll wear overcoats while we run, but we won't cheat. That's crazy. Don't live your life like that. So many people just try to figure out lowest standard possible to be a Christian. That's just insane if you know Jesus. Stupid. That's what it says. Weights. You don't run with weights. So the main point here is run. Take hold of your life. Run your marathon. It's a marathon of love. It's a marathon of faith, like we saw in chapter 11. And the question is, how do you do that? How do you stay on course for 72 years plus and not give in to all the temptations to leave the track and carry weights and cheat and do all kinds of things, but to rather give your life utterly and become a faith-filled, loving person, no matter how many muscles are screaming at you? You can't do this. How do you do that? And the answer is in verse 2. So let's look at it. Looking to Jesus. That's how you do it. Looking to Jesus. So I'm going to end this message in a few minutes by asking and pleading with you, get to know Him. So that when you sing those songs, that's not just words. He's enough. I'm sitting there thinking, does anybody here mean that? I mean, those are off the chart crazy lyrics. Gloriously crazy. True. But will you walk out of here really feeling He's enough? Well, that's what this is asking you to do, telling you to do. Look to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of your faith, who for the joy that was set before Him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of God. So how did He finish His race? So He had a marathon, right? His only lasted 33 years. And the last leg was horrific. So He's running a marathon with nails in His hands and nails in His feet and a spear in His side and a crown of thorns on His head and spit dripping off His beard from the sidelines where they're mocking Him all the way to the end and spitting at Him. And He finished it. How in the world did He do that? Because my guess is if you had to live a day like that, you'd say, I'm out of here. If that's the way you treat your children, I'm done. So you have to answer, how will I finish my marathon if I have to face wind and hills or heat like that? And the answer for Jesus in the verse 2 was, for the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross, despising the shame. So the last several hundred yards, quarter mile, I don't know, Good Friday to 3 o'clock on Thursday night in the garden, sweating blood, till around 3 o'clock the next day. How did he do that? How did he finish that? And how will you finish? Let me pause here and just make sure we have a common assumption. I'm not going to make a case for this. I'm going to just assume it, that you all agree that those last 12 hours or so of Jesus' life, in which he resolved to go through the cross, stayed on the cross when they were mocking him and saying, yeah, if you're the Christ, come down and we'll believe on you, blah, blah, blah. And he stays there till he's dead. That was the greatest act of love that has ever been performed in the history of the world. I'm just assuming that. That was love. So you see how this is moving now. I'm asking in this sermon, how can I get rid of my selfishness, become a man for others in love at any cost to myself? You see this? You see the picture? I want to be done with selfishness. I want to be a person who's willing to spend his life benefiting others, not immediately myself. And I would like to stick to that marathon style of life, maximally blessing, maximally honoring, at any cost. How? And the answer here is, for the joy that was set before him. For the joy that was set before him. So you look to him now and learn from Jesus how to finish your marathon of faith and love. Answer: for the joy that is set before you. How can I run like this? I will run like Jesus. So the title of this message that I jotted down was Serious Joy as the Spring of Love. And now I hope you can see it in Jesus' life at least. Serious joy, meaning a joy that penetrates through the most horrific finishing of a marathon with nails and thorns and spear and mocking. Serious joy penetrating through and never wavering off the marathon. How can I get there? Now, suppose someone, this is so crucial, I've been trying to motivate myself and other people with that joy set before us for the sake of love for the last 50 years. So I think that's the biblical paradigm of how you conquer selfishness and become loving. You look to the joy that is set before you. It is so satisfying. It frees you from the fleeting pleasures of sin, enables you to lay down your life for others. That's the paradigm that I see in Jesus and I'm being invited into here. Here's the question it raises. When you say, Piper, that Jesus was sustained on the cross by joy that he hopes to get beyond the grave, aren't you turning love into another form of selfishness? I mean, he wants to be happy. So, in wanting to be happy, he goes ahead and endures the cross. So now it's all about him and his happiness. He's not loving you. He's trying to make himself happy. That's the key objection to my life and what I've taught for the last 50 years. Is it selfish of Jesus, not loving, but selfish, to do verse 2? For the joy that was set before him, for that joy he endured this cross. Does that turn the cross into selfishness? You need an answer to that question. because the text says that's how he did it. And a lot of people think that's not love. A lot of professional, scholarly ethics teachers teach that if you seek reward, you're not loving people. Now, here's why it's not selfish. Selfishness is the use of people, the exploitation of people to achieve your own ends without regard to whether it benefits them. I don't give a hoot about you. I'm after my happiness. I'm going to step on you if I have to. That's selfishness. Love doesn't forsake the pursuit of happiness in God. He doesn't forsake. Like, okay, I have to regard God as unsatisfying. I have to have no interest whatsoever in whether I'm happy in Him when I get to heaven. I have to forget all of the promises of God that I'm going to be glorified in His presence. I'm going to be with Jesus. It'll be spectacularly satisfying. I have to forget all of that so that I can be sacrificially loving to other people. The Bible just won't go there. What is love then? Love is when you pursue that joy at any cost to yourself, even the cost of your life, so as to bring as many people with you into that joy as you can. Nobody regards that as selfish. Nobody regards it as selfishness if you are pursuing a joy which you are willing to suffer to include them in. Nobody. In fact, I would argue if you forsake the pursuit of that joy, you got nothing to offer them. So, that's not a successful objection. So here's the big question, practically. Okay, if you're onto something here, Piper, like if you're right that the most beautiful, perfect, glorious person in the universe, the Son of God, Jesus Christ, finished his marathon, loved people for the joy that was set before him. He was sustained by that joy. Was there any joy on the marathon? Or is it just out there? Like here, no joy, just suffering. And out there, spectacular, all-satisfying joy in the future. How can you be sustained in the moment when that is having no effect on the moment that's a piece of it? Now, here's what I mean. If I ask, okay, help me, Hebrews, come on, I want to get this. Help me to discern how a joy set before me has an emotional effect right now to deal with my suffering. How does it work? And I go back in chapter 11 to verse 1, and it says, faith is the substance of things hoped for. Substance. Sometimes translated assurance. It's a very unusual word. Here's the idea. Faith, right now, Gethsemane. He sees hours away, or let's say 3 days away, resurrection, vindication, triumph over death and hell and sin. That's coming. Oh, that is awesome. I will be there shortly. Faith, his faith, our faith, right now is the substance of that. Substance. At least that means taste it, has a piece of it, right? Right now, if you have real clarity about the joy set before you with Jesus forever, faith feels it now through tears. Paul said in 2 Corinthians 6:10, sorrowful yet always rejoicing. Sorrowful yet always rejoicing, which means that the joy is not after sorrow or before sorrow, it's in sorrow. How's that? That's because faith is the substance of that joy that you're hoping for. Now, last question. Are there any examples of how this actually works in Hebrews? So, let's put up Hebrews 10, 32 to 34. Or you can look at it in your own copy of the scriptures. Hebrews 10, 32 to 34. I tell you, few texts in the Bible convict me more, fill me more with longing to be a different kind of person than the fallen, incomplete John Piper. Recall the former days. These people made a great start. They're starting to drift, and that's why this book is written, but they made a great start, and this is what it looked like. Recall the former days when you were enlightened. That means saved. Light broke into your heart. You endured a hard struggle with sufferings. Life didn't go better for them when they got saved. It went worse. Sometimes being publicly exposed to reproach. Okay, some of them actually got clobbered head on. And affliction. Sometimes being partners with those so treated. So you saw your Christian friend or family member being mistreated, and you chose to identify with them. For you had compassion. Now he's explaining one of those occasions of identification with those who were suffering. You had compassion on those in prison. Okay, they were put in prison. You were not put in prison. So you had to decide whether compassion would free you from the risk, from the fear of the risk of identifying with them, or you go underground and let them suffer alone in prison while you stay safe and keep your skin and your house and your kids and your computer and your books safe. And it says, and this is the miracle that I long for, and I hope you long for. You had compassion on those in prison. How did you have compassion? Because you joyfully accepted the plundering of your property. Now, accepting the plundering of your property is one glorious thing. Joyfully accepting the plundering of your property is crazy. Christians are crazy. Wonderfully, gloriously, otherworldly, miraculously crazy, which would make Cincinnati say, Look at those crazy people. How in the world do they endure, you name it, endure whatever God is pleased in His sovereignty to let wash over your life in sorrow and pain? They joyfully accepted the plundering of their property. That's like Jesus embracing the cross, despising the shame, right? How did they do it? They did it, it says. Watch the next phrase, just like Jesus did it. Since, last phrase of verse 34, since you knew that you had a better possession and an abiding one. I just ask you, am I making this up? Or is that not an exact statement of the logic of Hebrews 12:2? For the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross. For the better possession and abiding one, they joyfully accepted the plundering of their property. That's the key to the Christian life. At least I want to be done with selfishness. I want to be a loving person. I want to be able to give my life away with joy as I die for others to make Him look good. That's what I'm after. And that's the first illustration of it there in Hebrews. And there's one more I want to show you. So let's go to chapter 11 now. And we'll look at verses 24 to 26 and watch Moses do the very same thing with the very same logic, motivated by the very same joy set before him. By faith, Moses, when he was grown up, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. So he's in the palace of the Pharaoh as a child of the Pharaoh, which means he has access to every conceivable wealth and pleasure that Egypt has to offer at its highest echelons. So what about the cross? What about shame? Let's keep reading. He refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing Rather, to be mistreated with the people of God. Oh, what a ragtag, ornery, rebellious group of people that he had to lead through the wilderness. And he has a choice to stay in the palace or lead this cranky people who never get it through the wilderness on the way to a promised land. And he never gets there in this life. What a sad way to live, and he chooses it. I want to do that. With the years I have left, I just want to do that. I hate this word retirement. I think it's a bad word. It's not in the Bible. So, no offense if you're fishing. A little bit, maybe. But get a life. Get a life. You are on the planet for a few more months or years, and they're designed to be like this, choosing rather to be mistreated with the people of God than to enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. I love that word fleeting because it so says, you're onto something, Piper. You're onto something because it's not pleasure that's bad. It's fleeting pleasure, ones that only last 80 years. There's a joy set before you. It's not selfish and it's not wrong to want to be with Jesus, free from sinning, free from cancer, free from depression, free from discouragement, free from rheumatoid arthritis, seeing him face to face forever, ever increasing joy. It's not wrong to want that. I'll tell you what's wrong, wanting 80 years of fleeting pleasures in the palaces of Egypt. That's what's wrong. So this text is another picture. We didn't even finish reading it yet. Let's keep going. He considered, how did he do this? How did he embrace this reproach? He considered reproach of Christ, the reproach of the Messiah, whom he could see by the eye of faith coming. He considered the reproach of Christ greater wealth than the treasures of Egypt. How? For he was looking to the reward, the joy that was set before him. So now you've seen three instances of the key to your life. Hebrews 12:2, Hebrews 10:34, Hebrews 11:26, all say the same thing. For the joy that is set before you, spectacular, off the charts joy, endure your cross. And if your faith can embrace that, you will taste it now. We do, right? Right in the middle of the tears flowing down our face with a dead husband in the coffin, or a little child with a malformity that you never dreamed would happen when you got pregnant, or whatever is making your life really, really hard. This tastes awesome. This will sustain you. This will get you to the end of your marathon. So let me end like this. If you go deep with Jesus, and I said at the end, I'll be ending up here, looking to Jesus. So I'm saying, get to know him. Get to know him now and forever. And if you get to know him so deeply that he's an all-satisfying joy to you, three things are going to happen. All right, here we go. And we're done. One, your joy, even in sufferings in this life, will overflow. Even in sufferings, your joy in him, in that joy that is set before you, will overflow. Number two, that joy will sustain a life of marathon love for others. It will sustain it. You can make all the sacrifices necessary to love other people because of the joy set before you. And number three, that joy-sustained love in him will make Jesus look great. So, Father, I pray that Jesus would look great through a life of love, a marathon of love, sustained by satisfaction in the joy set before us, namely Jesus Christ. In his name I pray, amen.